How's it going, everyone? I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I'm a mess, and I recently had the pleasure of watching the Demon Slayer movie after waiting months for it to come out in the US. So for this video, I'm going to be discussing and reviewing the movie. I'm going to be breaking down the video into 3 parts. The first part will be talking about the aesthetics of the movie. It's going to be a relatively short part of the video, but I feel like the aesthetics were a huge part of the movie's appeal. The second part is going to be a spoiler-free discussion about the plot. I will be vaguely discussing the character's development throughout the movie as well as my overall thoughts on it as a whole. The final part is going to be the spoiler-filled segment of the video. I will be giving you guys a heads up when we reach that part of the video. So with that out of the way, let's get started. This movie was brought to us by Ufotable Studios, who are also the people behind the incredible Fate Zero and the classic anime Gurren Lagann, both of which are considered to be among the best animes ever made. The studio was also able to produce visually stunning animation for the movie just like it did with those 2 shows. Like seriously, the art and animation department went all out for this movie with its beautiful animations and stunning artwork, just like the show did when it first aired on TV. However, the movie having a bigger budget to work with managed to outdo itself. The colors just seemed to pop out more whenever one of the Demon Slayers were using their breath techniques. I personally felt the animation for the breath techniques were the show's main visual appeal, even more so than the well-choreographed fights. The movie decided to improve upon that. Instead of making it look like a painting coming out of the blade, they made it resemble a more realistic effect by making the elements a little shinier, I want to say. I don't know how to properly describe it. It felt like the water was more like actual water than a painting, but not too much so that it lost the artwork aesthetic. Also, the movie was directed by Haruo Sotozaki, who's the director behind both Cowboy Bebop and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, 2 unaging classics that have stood the test of time. It's a testament to Haruo's directorial capabilities that these 2 shows are among the most popular animes out there. And now, Demon Slayer will definitely be joining them on that list. The show itself was incredibly popular, and the movie just propelled the title through the roof. You don't need to take my word for it. Mugen Train is the highest grossing movie in Japan because of its dedicated fan base. Movie theaters extended the movie's airing period in Japan because of how much traction it was building. The movie's gross income was rapidly increasing, and it was clear that the fan base was growing with more and more people tuning in for each showing. The movie's story is definitely credited to the mangaka, apologies if I mispronounce his name, Koyoharu Gotouge, who wrote the story, but it was the director, Haruo Sotozaki, who made the decision on the choreography and art style that made this movie visually pleasing. And of course, the music was phenomenal. It really helped set the mood and draw you into every single swing of the sword. Each song was in tone with the character's movement, so if one of the characters would quickly attack, the music would rise as they quickly dashed around the train. The music really helped emphasize that this movie was just one big boss fight, and added an extra layer of depth to an already phenomenally choreographed fight. It was a beautiful work of art that did not disappoint in terms of the movie's aesthetics. Now that I finished talking about how visually pleasing the movie is, let's shift gears into the actual plot itself. So the movie focuses on the Mugen Train arc from the manga and acts as a bridge between the first and second season. The movie picks up where the first season left off, with Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu boarding the train as it departs. There, they meet up with the flame Hashira, Kyojuro Rengoku. This movie primarily revolves around us learning about who Kyojuro is, how he became a mentor for the 3 protagonists, and taught them what it takes to become a member of the Hashira. The movie did a really good job of establishing Kyojuro as a mentor for the short amount of screen time that they were working with. If you guys are aware of the hero's journey architect, this movie would primarily be the challenges portion of it, with Kyojuro entering the spotlight. This was his movie. He had a significant impact on the story and gave a huge boost to Tanjiro's development. Tanjiro was already a well-written character, and the events of the movie just added that much depth to his character. It made him a much better protagonist. He is slowly becoming a reliable slayer who can fight against the upper ranked demons thanks to the help of Kyojuro. Despite all of the praise I'm giving Tanjiro as one of the better written shonen characters out there right now, he's not the star of the movie. The best character in the movie is definitely Kyojuro, and the author, Koyoharu, emphasized that, with us learning this character's backstory as well as seeing him display his unwavering resolve and burning personality. He honestly became one of my favorite characters with only a little over an hour of screen time. A character has to be really special to do that. I mean, you don't just jump into my favorite anime character list unless you do something really special. And he did just that. Kudos to Koyoharu for making me fall in love with a character as fast as he did with Kyojuro. Now, as far as I can tell, Kyojuro is your typical high energy character with a very bold personality and loud voice. The way he acts cannot be distinguished from the others within the bold character archetype. But it's not his personality alone that makes him so lovable, but it's his actions. There's a reason people say actions speak louder than words, because a lot of what Kyojuro had to say didn't leave a huge impact on me. It's what he did that really blew me away. I will get into that more later on during the spoiler-filled section of the video. Now, one of the downsides of this movie is that both Tanjiro and Kyojuro had so much of the spotlight that it felt like Inosuke, Zenitsu, and Nezuko were left behind in the dust. They don't get a lot of development throughout the movie. Inosuke is the only one of the three who showed any signs of maturing and growing at the end of the movie. It kinda felt like a waste of potential with them being sidelined for a new character who just joined the cast. Although, as I stated earlier, he became one of my favorite characters after this movie, so I can't complain too much. Now, from here on out, I will be going into heavy spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, I suggest you click off the video and go watch it. Now, when we are first introduced to Kyojuro in the movie, he's eating from a bento, a Japanese lunchbox, and yelling out delicious at the top of his lungs after each bite he takes. This ridiculous scene just goes to show off his personality a bit. He clearly doesn't care what other people think of him. He's incredibly bold to do something that will draw a lot of attention to himself without a care in the world. He also gives out credit where credit is due. That's why he was yelling delicious at the top of his lungs after every single bite. It was to show his respect to the chef by proclaiming the deliciousness of each bite he took. At least that is what I believe. From there, him and Tanjiro have probably the most important conversation of the series so far. They talked about two things. First is the Hino Kamikagura dance that Tanjiro witnessed his father performing and how it's incorporated into the fire breath. The second would be about Tanjiro's black sword. The former focused more on the mystery behind the dance and how it allowed Tanjiro's father to move despite his ailment. Unfortunately, Kyojuro had no information on the dance, so it remains a mystery how the dance was incorporated into a breath technique to create the fire breath. We do get a lead on it at the end of the movie, but I will get to that when we reach that part of the video. The next thing they discussed was the significance of Tanjiro's black sword and what it represented. Now, the blades that the Demon Slayer's corp uses are called Nichirin blades, which is made from an ore that constantly absorbs sunlight, making them very effective against demons who are weak to the sun. The sword has a special property, where the blade changes color when it's first drawn by its wielder. When Tanjiro first drew his sword, it turned black. In the movie, it's finally explained what the black blade means. Kyojuro informs Tanjiro that no one that's ever had a black Nichirin has ever become a Hashira. That is because one of the conditions to becoming a Hashira is mastering one of the breath styles. Unfortunately for Tanjiro, the black Nichirin means that the wielder is unable to settle on a breath style. They tend to learn multiple elements. As such, they don't master a single one, which instantly makes them ineligible to become a Hashira. The Hashira are supposed to be the face of the Demon Slayer's corp, with each member being the pinnacle of their respected breath styles. We know that Tanjiro has been training using the water breath style, but he can naturally use the fire breath style, which originated with his father. Unfortunately, there isn't much info on the fire breath, but Kyojuro is the flame Hashira, which is the closest to it. For the movie, Kyojuro took on the role of mentor for a short time and helped build up Tanjiro's confidence, despite pretty much telling him he can't become a Hashira. From there on, we are slowly introduced to the movie's antagonist, the lower-ranked one demon, Enmu. He or she, the movie doesn't exactly specify the sex, so I will be treating him as a man because his voice actor is a man. Anyway, he has the ability to put people to sleep and place them in a dream. Whether it's a pleasant dream or a nightmare is up to him. He does this by having one of the conductors punch the passenger's ticket that he soaked with his own blood. After successfully placing the 4 Demon Slayers into a dream, he had recruited 4 passengers to use a rope he created to tie their wrists to the Demon Slayers, allowing them to enter their dreams. From there, The 4 kids are to seek out the Slayer spirit and destroy it. Kyojuro had subconsciously sensed that something was wrong and grabbed the girl tied to his wrist despite still being inside of the dream. Tanjiro realized that he was in a dream and searched for a way out. He eventually came to the conclusion that he may need to slice his throat in the dream to shock himself awake. Slicing his throat succeeds in waking him up to where he goes on to face Enmu. Tanjiro was willing to risk his life in order to wake up and save the passengers. It shows how ballsy of a character he is. He came to the conclusion of slicing his own throat because he knew his body could still feel stuff happening in the real world. Because Nezuko used her demon art ability to create flames around Tanjiro's body. Tanjiro not only felt the heat, but even smelled Nezuko's blood, causing him to do whatever it takes to wake up. After realizing that the sensation of heat caused him to be aware of the dream world, he now knows he needs a stronger sensation to wake himself up. So he slit his throat to create that strong sensation to forcefully wake himself up. No other Slayer, not even the Hashira Kyojuro, had done that. It shows that Tanjiro's senses and instinct were superior to theirs. After waking up, he knocked out the kids trying to kill them, and went to the front of the train where the demon stench was the strongest. He then proceeded to fight Enmu, who was unable to keep Tanjiro asleep. So Enmu decided to mentally scar Tanjiro by showing him a dream where his family insults him for letting them die at the hands of a demon. Tanjiro instantly woke up and in a fit of rage yelled at Enmu, stating his family would never act like that, and decapitated him. Tanjiro instantly became confused because Enmu's body didn't turn to ash. It turns out that Enmu merged with the train and began attempting to eat the passengers. However, the other Slayers awoke after Tanjiro decapitated Enmu the first time and proceeded to protect the passengers. We then see Kyojuro scolding himself for allowing himself to fall asleep at a time like this. He then used the Flame Breath first form unknowing flame to quickly dash through the train, cutting up the demon limbs reaching out towards the passengers. Visually, this was one of the most insane scenes with how the fire was dancing across the train. Anyway, continuing with the story, Kyojuro meets up with Tanjiro and tells him that out of the 8 carts on the train, he will protect 5 of them, while Nezuko and Zenitsu will handle the other 3. And while they were protecting the passengers, he and Inosuke had to find the demon's head and cut it off. This is where Kyojuro's full abilities are displayed. He protects 5 carts full of people. He took the pressure off of Tanjiro and allowed him to remain calm and focus on locating Enmu's head. Based on where the demon's stench was the strongest, he figured out that it had to be in the engine room where he and Inosuke met up. There, the conductor, wanting to be placed in a beautiful dream, stabbed Tanjiro. They knocked out the conductor and proceeded to uncover Enmu's neck that was hidden under the floorboard. Enmu then revealed his full strength. He grew a massive blob of flesh covered in eyeballs around his neck. If the eyes make eye contact with anyone, they get put to sleep. So Tanjiro gets put into a dream and slits his own throat to wake up. But when he does wake up, he meets Enmu's gaze again and falls right back asleep. He repeats this process several times, and he tries to avoid Enmu's gaze but fails every single time. Eventually, Enmu stops putting him in a dream, and Tanjiro, stuck in his loop, almost sliced his throat while being awake. Fortunately, Inosuke's mask prevented him from meeting Enmu's gaze, and he stopped Tanjiro before it was too late. Tanjiro's dedication was almost his downfall. He was so focused on defeating Enmu by any means necessary that it almost caused him to take his own life. This made me think that Tanjiro struggles to keep his head clear under pressure. Think about it, he couldn't locate Enmu's head right away. It took Kyojuro assuring him that he will protect the passengers for Tanjiro to focus and find his head. He even became frustrated that he didn't realize it earlier. He doesn't make quick decisions during difficult times, but he doesn't focus on what he's doing. It's almost instinctual. But due to his inexperience, his instincts aren't a sure thing, as it's shown when he nearly slit his own throat. He needed to get out of the dream, and his body was simply reacting to his instinct, which was to do whatever it took to defeat this demon. If it weren't for Inosuke's intervention, Tanjiro would have lost his life. After this, Tanjiro and Inosuke worked together to defeat Enmu. While Inosuke cleared the eyeballs and flesh protecting the neck, Tanjiro uses the Hinokami Kagura, Clear Blue Sky, to destroy the neck and kill the lower rank first demon. The train then derails, but Kyojuro used his incredible skills that he displayed earlier to carry all 200 or so passengers to safety. Kyojuro then checks on Tanjiro and Inosuke afterwards and notices Tanjiro is severely bleeding from the injury he sustained from the conductor. Kyojuro instructed him to focus his breathing on his abdomen to stop the bleeding. Then the most shocking moment in the whole movie happens. The upper rank third demon comes out of nowhere and attempts to recruit Kyojuro to become a demon. Of course, Kyojuro instantly turns him down. The demon Akaza isn't really shocked by this, but he still tries to convince him by stating that as a human, he will grow old and die before he can become one of the strongest beings in existence, which Akaza believes Kyojuro can become. Kyojuro has a different viewpoint on life. He doesn't see growing old and dying as a bad thing. Having a shorter lifespan makes every moment memorable and allows them to grow. He also talks about how strength isn't measured as a physical trait, but an emotional one instead. He finally states that he will never become a demon under no circumstances. Akaza then begins to fight Kyojuro in an attempt to kill him because he believes that if Kyojuro doesn't want to become a demon, it would be better for him to die while he's still strong. After a long and intense fight, Kyojuro is worn out while Akaza is still in tip-top shape due to being a demon whose wounds instantly heal. Kyojuro then readies his most powerful attack while proclaiming that he is the Flame Hashira, and he won't allow a single life to be lost. Both him and Akaza unleashed one final attack, and Akaza's fist pierced through Kyojuro's abdomen. Akaza pleads with Kyojuro to become a demon because the wound is fatal, and if he doesn't, he will die. Kyojuro then remembers his final conversation with his mother, where she tells him the reason he's strong is to protect those that are weak. Then Kyojuro lets out one final scream and slices at Akaza's neck with his sword and begins to embed it in there. Akaza tries to punch Kyojuro in the face, but Kyojuro grabs his wrist instead. At the same time, the sun begins to rise and Akaza begins to panic. He tries to escape, but Kyojuro refuses to release him. Despite being injured and weakened, Kyojuro tightens his abs and clenches his fist, refusing to let Akaza escape. Tanjiro, who was barely able to move until this point, mustered up whatever strength he had left to go and help Kyojuro along with Inosuke, who, despite being healthy, couldn't find an opening to join the fight until this point. Just when the sun was about to come up, Akaza breaks Kyojuro's sword to prevent it from fully cutting off his head, and rips off his limbs at the same time and dashes into the forest, fleeing from the sun. Tanjiro then chucks his sword into Akaza's back while calling him a coward for fleeing, while humans will charge in headfirst into the night to fight against demons, who can instantly heal any injuries while they can't. This line held a lot of significance to me. It shows that Tanjiro recognizes that humans are no match for demons, even with their breath techniques and swords. Despite this, humans will face off against those demons knowing full well that they might die, while demons who fight with an advantage at all times will flee in fear the moment that advantage is lost. With that one line, Tanjiro set up his inevitable growth because he recognized that he was weak, but he will continue to go into situations that could cause him to die with no hesitation. It will cause him to grow as a human being. When Kyojuro heard this, he was impressed. He then informed Tanjiro to go to his family estate to see if his father had any old notes about the Hinokami Kagura. He also told him that after seeing Nezuko defend the passengers, he recognizes her as a member of the Demon Slayer's corps, and tells the three young slayers, Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu, that they all have what it takes to become the next generation's Hashira. He also told them to not feel sad about his death, because as a Hashira, it was only natural that he would sacrifice himself to protect younger slayers. Kyojuro showed us what it takes to become a Hashira, which was Tanjiro's goal. Kyojuro then died with a smile on his face after seeing the ghost of his mother telling him he did a good job. Afterwards, Tanjiro began to question if he could really become as strong as Kyojuro. Despite Kyojuro encouraging him and telling him he can become one of the Hashiras, Tanjiro still doubted himself. Then Inosuke chimed in, telling him that he shouldn't cry at his death, and instead of questioning if he can become like him, he should train to surpass not just Kyojuro, but all of the Hashira. He said all of this while he was also bawling his eyes out. It was the closest thing to comforting words that we were going to get to come out of Inosuke's mouth. But it was what Tanjiro needed to hear. The movie ends with the word of Kyojuro's death spreading to the other Hashiras and Kagaya Ubuyashiki, the head of the Demon Slayer corpse. Kagaya probably gave us the most important line of the series, and that was the fact that he wasn't sad at Kyojuro's death, because he succeeded in what he set out to do. and that was to protect the passengers and the young slayers working with him. Kyojudo wouldn't want people to be sad for him because he completed his mission and prepared these young slayers for what they would probably have to go through in the future to become Mahashiras themselves. It's a testament to his mentality as a leader and mentor. Despite the small amount of screen time, Kyojudo made a huge impact on me. He fought to the point of death and continued to fight past it. It is sad that he was just a kill-off character, a character who gets introduced in an arc just to be killed off in that arc or in the next one. I see it as a cheap way to force a character's development without killing a character who has been a part of the story for a very long time. However, I feel that the impact he had on the story and the protagonist while he was still alive were so significant that his death was just the icing on top of the cake. Also, it's still early on in the Demon Slayer storyline, that I believe the author can do whatever he wants to set up the story as a whole. In my mind, we are still in the prologue of the story. We haven't reached the main storyline yet. Also, I have not read the manga, so I don't know how true that last statement was. So I'll just wait and see. Also, I felt like there wasn't enough screen time to go around, and it left Zenitsu and Nezuko with no development whatsoever, which was a little sad. But Tanjiro and Inosuke both developed a lot after this movie. I personally cannot wait to see how the second season shows off how they transform after this event. In the end, Mugen Train was an amazing movie that I thoroughly enjoyed throughout the whole screening. It was a roller coaster of emotions with beautiful artwork and animations that I will legitly frame and hang up on my walls so people can come over and see just how gorgeous some of these scenes were. It was an action-packed adventure that I was so happy to experience in the theaters, and I think you all should too. That's going to be it for this one, folks. I would like to thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you all in the next one, and remember to keep having fun. See ya!